Good evening, and welcome to the Sandy Creek Central School District Reopening Information Forum. To begin, I would like to say that we are still taking questions at this time, and we will attempt to answer them before the end of this. If you would like to ask any questions, please send them to reopeningquestions@sccs.cnyric.org. Introducing myself, my name is Kevin Seymour. I am the high school principal.
I am Amy Malloy, I'm the middle school principal.
Tim Filiatra, the elementary principal.
While developing this plan to start, we had a committee that we put together of over 30 stakeholders. Those stakeholders, some were parents, teachers, administrators, students. We spent a lot of time, a lot of conversations, and much collaboration amongst all stakeholders in order to put this together. Also, we brought in the guidance that was provided from New York State. Part of that was the Recovering, Rebuilding, and Renewing the Spirit of New York Schools reopening guidance, the CDC guidelines, and New York State health guidelines. We have also been working with the Oswego County Health Department to answer some of our questions related to health and safety here in the building. While developing this plan, we had several goals. Two of them: ensure the safety and social and emotional well-being of students, staff, and community members. Also, we wanted to develop a plan that safely maximizes the academic engagement between students and teachers. We're going to supply a lot of information to you tonight. We added to the slideshow for Monday. Also, we received quite a few questions from Monday till now, which we are excited about the ability to answer some of these pieces. We're going to give you a lot of information, but this won't be the last time. Leading up to the opening of school, we will provide more information to you as we solidify some of the pieces that we are still working on, and we thank you for your patience with that.
To discuss the difference between a remote learning and homeschool, because that was often maybe confused a little bit. Remote learning is when students are going to be following our school-based curriculum via assistance from their teachers. How each grade level implements the remote learning will be a little bit different. In remote learning, our students will remain enrolled as Sandy Creek students. As homeschool students, the parents will have to register their child with the district. A parent must submit a letter of intent and go through that process of documenting that their child will be homeschooled. Under homeschooling, the parent accepts all responsibility for their child's education, including grading and assessment, and providing quarterly updates to our homeschooling person here. There also has been some questions coming up about whether students can choose remote homeschooling, but we're asking you to choose one mode of instruction. We're suggesting that you stick with that mode of instruction. If you have questions regarding remote learning or homeschooling, please reach out to your school's administrator.
Attendance. Attendance is going to be taken daily for students regardless of whether they are on-site in person or if they are remote learners at home. So attendance is vital, it's important, it is stressed in our plan. It's mandated that we take attendance daily. Students who don't attend or participate on-site or virtually have the risk of failing classes or not receiving credit. Our teachers will be stressing that to the students, that it is important that they participate, that they are attending those sessions, whether it's in school or the remote learning sessions.
Next, we've had questions, and it is important to address masks, wearing a mask. What can we have? What does it have to look like? Right now, the guidance is saying that we have to have students wearing cloth masks. We are, however, working with alternate masks at this point, but none of that has been solidified. We can definitely say, though, that the expectation right now will be with cloth masks. Students, they will be required to wear masks on the bus and whenever they're unable to socially distance. So students, they'll be required to wear the mask in school when they can't socially distance, but there'll be some times when they will be able to socially distance. And we've worked diligently to make that happen inside of the classrooms. We've worked to keep our numbers down so that we can have 12 or less, and we will get into those numbers later, students in a class, which will allow for social distancing so that students are able to take their masks off when in the classroom. Per New York State law, though, please understand that there are some students that are not going to be able to wear masks per medically documented situation. And as a result, they'll have to go through the proper channels through CSD or 504. They'll have to develop that plan. And if that needs to happen, please contact Kim Manfredi, our CSA chairperson here at Sandy Creek. At this point, though we are working with it, face shields do not qualify as a mask.
Temperature checks have also been brought up in our discussion and several of our questions. Before entering a bus, a student's temperature will be taken by a bus monitor. If the temperature is above 100 degrees, the child will not be able to enter the bus or attend school and will be directed back into the residence. We're going to need some good partnerships with our families to ensure that there's going to be somebody at home to receive a child if they do have a temperature above 100. For students that are dropped off, we will have 2 separate points at the middle school, high school, and one at the elementary for students being dropped off. They will also have to have their temperature taken before entering the building. And parents will not be able to leave campus until their child is verified of having a temperature less than 100. So again, we'll need our cooperation with our parents and our families to ensure that their child is accounted for in the case that they do have a temperature over 100. Like we said, we will have 2 separate entry points, one for the elementary closest facing to the road, and at the middle school, high school entrance, it'll be on the side of the building where the ramp is nearest to the gym entrances.
Our reopening plan. Just a few highlights of the plan itself. We've worked very hard to get students in the building. But we know we have a portion of our students who will be remote learners, so we're trying to take all of that into account. We are currently looking at a plan that has students coming to our building in person from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For kindergarten through 6th grade, that means that they will attend school Monday through Friday each day from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Our class sizes, kindergarten through 6, have been reduced. We've worked very hard to reduce them, make them small. We're working on schedules to maximize social distancing. Class sizes, we'll get to that a little bit later. You'll hear the numbers. We work very hard to get them small enough so we can socially distance in the classroom. Students will remain with their cohort for K-5 at this point, so they stay with their homeroom in their classroom with their homeroom teacher for the day. In 6th grade, those students will be switching following more of a 7-12 schedule for that part. Breakfast and lunch for the K-5 will be in the classroom. Students will be served breakfast at their classroom, and the lunch will be delivered to the classroom as well. For middle school, high school, I'll let Mr. Seymour talk about that.
So just to kind of keep on going with what he was just talking about, breakfast will be in the classrooms for our middle and high school students. For lunch, they will have lunch in the cafeterias, utilizing both the elementary and the high school cafeteria in order to keep our numbers down. We will also be mitigating the amount of movement that will take place during those times to ensure that there's no congestion and kids are not close and that they do continue to socially distance. Students, they'll be placed into cohorts that will attend school on site twice per week. And Monday and Wednesday, cohort A will go, which is A through L, and then cohort B will go Tuesday and Thursday, and that is M through Z. We do have to make some accommodations for BOCES, some other programs, and some other courses, so we will have to move students around. We will get that information to the students that need that. On Fridays, virtual learning will take place all day, but students will follow their in-person schedule on those days. All students, they will attend Sandy Creek here 2 days per week, with the exception of our BOCES students, they will attend BOCES once per week. We are still working on a plan for that. That BOCES, our BOCES has to consider all of the other school districts when they develop a plan, so they are working diligently to create that plan. As soon as we have that information, we will be able to get that to our families and to our community. We will accommodate our families to attend on the same day to alleviate issues with childcare or any other concerns.
We've created a tentative 6 through 12 schedule. We have to adjust a few things. As you can see, it's kind of in the works still. But this is kind of our tentative schedule that our 6 through 12 graders will follow. And we will be getting all that information out when it's accurate and final to you prior to the start of school. But as you can see here, we will be working on an 8 to 1:30 schedule, following their class periods like the regular class schedule for a normal day, just shortened time periods, and you see that they're half an hour in class times instead of your traditional 40 to 41 minutes. And we have less in the lunchtime from a half an hour to 20 minutes.
At the elementary for the K-5, the daily schedule, we are still working through those schedules. However, we have met as a committee several times. We know the importance of getting the core subjects in, but we also wanted to make sure our students were able to take part in some specials, that they had their special areas as well. So you'll see that every day students will have math, they will have ELA. Both of those will be approximately an hour of time. They will have science or social studies built into their day. There will be time built in the K-5 schedule for intervention. That will look a little differently depending on which grade level and due to staffing, so how we handle that might look different, but there will be intervention for those students. And then our goal right now is to have all students have one 40-minute special Monday through Thursday. So each day, Monday through Thursday, students would go to a special. So they would attend PE one day a week for 40 minutes, the same for art, music, and tech. Currently, Friday, there are no specials, but we have other activities and things planned for that day that we're working on.
For those students that intend on going remote, 100% remote, our grade level and content area teachers, they are working to create a plan, and in some cases it will be dependent on those teachers. However, we will have a concrete plan that will be provided to our families that are remote learners, so they know exactly when a teacher will be available to meet their needs and to provide the instruction that the teacher will provide for that day. There will be a level of flexibility in terms of what that instruction will look like depending on the teacher and the coursework and the standards that they have to meet. For these remote learners, they will have to take attendance daily. So they will have to check in some capacity or another with each of their teachers. Simply being accounted for in attendance doesn't mean that the students are going to pass. They are going to be accountable for the work and be present and meet expectations of that course in order to receive course credit.
Before I move on to the next point, I just want to piggyback back to the temperature checks. The temperature is 100 or above, not above 100. So that is what we need to focus on if the temperature is 100 or above, just to clarify that. Again, there's all the details on some of these things. Where are we? This one. Okay. In the event that we do move to all remote instruction, our 6 through 12 schedule is going to follow the 8 o'clock to 1:30 schedule, Monday through Friday, to provide consistency for students and staff members. Detailed schedules will be provided in the event that we do transition to 100% remote, but we do have a plan for that. And as we spoke about this time and time again, students will be expected to check in daily as attendance is mandatory per New York State guidelines. Special education, this is a new slide we put on. We just want to reiterate the importance of our students with special needs and our 3 goals that we are definitely providing for our students. 1, giving them access to the general curriculum. 2, providing an opportunity for our students to work on IEP goals. And 3, I met today with a majority of our special education teachers about creating a contingency plan for each student in addition to their IEP and 504 plan. So each child's special education teacher will be reaching out to you prior to the start of the school year to discuss the contingency plan based on that your child's mode of instruction, whether it be in person, remote, or hybrid. This does not require an amendment meeting. This is attached to your child's IEP or 504 plan. and your child's special education teacher will review all of that for you so that you do feel comfortable prior to the start of the school year. All students will be provided their modifications and accommodations to the greatest extent possible, given the elected mode of instruction, either in-person, remote, hybrid, or homeschool.
So at this point, we are going to begin, we are going to begin answering the questions that we have received from the community. We do thank you for these questions, and feel free at any point in time to ask any other questions. We will attempt to answer them as we finish up the questions that we have in front of us. Feel free to send an email to reopeningquestions@sccs.cnyric.org.
One of the first questions, again, some of them we answered on Monday, but we are going to go through them all again, just to reiterate if you weren't here on Monday. If school does open back up in a hybrid model, will it be possible to have all the children in the household going on the same days? Yes, we are going to be working with our families to do the best we can to make sure that families can go on the same days. With that being said, though, there are students who have, BOCES on their schedule or other programming that's kind of outside of our control that they may have to attend that would not allow that. But in any other circumstance, we are going to be working closely with our families to accommodate each and every one of you the best we can.
Next are pre-K questions. We've received several questions regarding pre-K. This one, will there be a pre-K? If not, would the school be willing to give information to the parents of the pre-K students of what they would learn during pre-K so that parents can try to help their children be ready for kindergarten? We are still unsure. We're still uncertain about pre-K at this point. One thing we do know for certain is that there will not be transportation available for pre-K students if we have a program. So transportation, there is no transportation for pre-K due to several factors, mainly due to funding and budget and the different variables that play into this with our plan. If there is a program, it could likely be reduced in size to comply with CDC guidelines to make sure that we are able to socially distance those students. We did make phone calls to families to notify them of transportation this week, and we will be in contact about pre-K as more develops. To answer the other part, I am working closely with Julie McNett, our pre-K teacher, to put together packets of materials. We will, in the event that we do not have pre-K, we will provide pre-K families with as much information as we can and links and resources to help you with your child so that you can work with them at home.
Our next question has to deal with technology, and it asks whether or not all students will have access to some sort of device that will allow them to complete remote learning. All students K-12 will have some sort of device. K and 1, they will have an iPad, and then 2 through 12th grade, they will all have a Chromebook. Our K through 6th graders, they will leave their Chromebooks or their iPads here at school, while our high schoolers, 7th through 12th graders, they will be able to bring their Chromebooks back and forth home and to school.
The next question asked about the models that were most seriously looked at, and I think we've gone over them, but I will reiterate what we're offering to our families again. K through 6, we are offering an in-person Monday through Friday, in-person, or another option is to be strictly remote. There is no hybrid coming to school, remote learning for our K through 6 kids, like a combo hybrid model. For grades 6, 7 through 12, we are offering that hybrid model because of the size of our student body, 7 through 12. So again, kids would be on campus 2 days and remote 2 days.
The next question reads, if the model to be decided is face-to-face instruction, would that be 5 days a week time like normal, or would the kids go half the time in order to keep social distancing for transportation? As alluded to earlier, for K through 6, they will be in here each day. Our high school students, they will be in here 2 days per week, and that is to support social distancing in those classes so we can keep our numbers down. We do plan on using the hybrid model at this point based on the guidance that has been provided to us.
Our next question is about should there be distance learning or remote learning involved this year? Will there be someone to monitor the frequency of teachers reaching out and assisting their students? As you all know, last spring, we sort of refer to that as that was crisis teaching. We were all thrown into a situation that we were not prepared for. None of us were able to prepare for any of that. So moving forward, we've learned a lot from our experiences. As you heard, we're developing plans for 3 different models: the in-person model, a hybrid model, and a fully remote model. For all of those models, we will have, as you heard, attendance is going to be taken daily. There will be check-ins with students each day to make sure that they are engaged. It is part of each plan. We will be taking attendance regardless of instructional models. As I said, we are creating student schedules to make that remote learning a little easier for you at home, so that you know when your students need to be engaged, what times their teacher is available, and when the instruction is there. The plans also support social emotional well-being of our students. That has been built into that piece. Again, another layer of we want to check in on all the students, whether they are here in person or at home for remote learning. And we've developed systems and protocols that we will be following to make sure that that is happening across the K-12.
Our next question is asks, does Sandy Creek get daily frequent updates from the Oswego County Health Department on the current number of COVID cases? So we want to let our families know that we do connect daily with the Oswego County Health Department to monitor the number of COVID cases. Additionally, we also reach out to Jefferson County regularly to ensure that how many cases there are. It's our goal to ensure the health and physical and mental well-being of our students here at Sandy Creek. Please also know that we work with the Oswego County Health Department too, and we've worked with the health department in developing our reopening plans to ensure the safety of our students and staff.
Our next question: what are the district's plans if a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19? Currently, we are developing that plan. We are working closely with the Department of Health in order to come up with a plan that we will be able to get to all of our students, our family, and our community members, so it is very transparent and you are fully aware of what that will look like. We are still, again, waiting for the Department of Health to provide that very particular information to us.
Our next question is actually 2 parts. What metric, 3 feet, 6 feet, etc., is Sandy Creek using in classrooms between the student desks or tables? In the classrooms, per CDC and NICED guidance, we are maintaining the 6 feet for regular instruction in the classrooms. There are certain areas where it is recommended to have 12 feet, for instance, chorus, certain band instruments, and PE. And we are taking that into account as we plan for those special areas to occur. The other part of this deals with the social distancing, and it references that we have high seats on our buses and that we do not need to social distance. The question is about whether or not that is true. High back seats are considered a barrier, not just here at Sandy Creek, but in other schools across our county. Families will sit together. We will do our best in conversations with Robin Cashel, our transportation supervisor. Families will sit together. It's important that you know that as the bus picks up students along the route, students who are picked up first will go to the back of the bus. They will load the bus from the back to the front along the route as they go, so that students do not have to pass one another in the aisles. And masks, again, are required at all times on the bus, so that we have that safety and that barrier on the bus.
The next question asks about class sizes in the elementary, classrooms per grade level, and what is the maximum number of children in the classroom, and also have more teachers been hired. So K through 5, our class sizes are 14 or less. We have 3 or 4 sections per grade level. That is dependent on enrollment. In 6th grade, our sections, we have 5 of them. There are 13 per class. 7th and 12th grade, because of our hybrid model, we will have no more than 12 students per class. And no, there have not been any teachers hired.
Our next question reads, what is the plan for daily screening of students on campus, and will temperatures be taken for children before they get on the bus, and how will we take temperatures of those students that are dropped off? Yes, students will be, their temperatures will be taken prior to them getting on the bus. For those students that are dropped off, they will have to go through one specific entry point, and they will have their temperatures taken there, and we will have that information. And again, we will turn them away if it is 100 or more.
Or above, yeah.
Our next question comes from someone who has selected remote learning for their child. And their question is, will we be able to make the final choice as it gets closer to the start of school? For planning purposes, we would like to have the final decision from you as soon as possible. However, we understand this situation is fluid and that things change rapidly. So there could be changes leading up to the opening of school that we know that you will consider. All we ask is that if you change, that you please contact us as soon as possible regarding that change.
The next question is, if we still choose remote, would we be able to change to in-school as the year progresses if we decide to do so? And like, I think this goes with what Mr. Filiatro just said, we are going to suggest and encourage that if you choose a mode of instruction, that you stick with that. However, we understand that there are circumstances and that the situation is fluid, which may cause you to change your decision on the mode of instruction.
Please understand that if you do change the mode of instruction in the middle of the year, it could alter the plans, as again, we work very diligently to keep our numbers down in the classroom. It will have to be revisited if we have a number of people decide that they're going to change their mode of instruction. However, we will work very, very hard to ensure that we can accommodate all of our students. Our next question asks about masks, and do they have to wear masks, and can it be a full face shield? At this point in time, guidance from the CDC tells us that face shields are not acceptable. Again, however, we are looking into it in order to determine if some variation of it can be used.
Our next question is about what procedures will be in place for the days students attend school. Will there be daily temperature checks? As mentioned before, temperatures will be taken before students get on the bus. If it is a student who is being dropped off or walking to school, we will be taking their temperature before they can enter the building. And for parent drop-off, we will be taking their temperature before parents leave the parking lot, leave the campus, so that if there is an issue, the parent is still there. So we would encourage you to please be patient with us that first week or so as we do that, as we get our routines underway. As mentioned also, there will be 2 separate entrance points for elementary and for middle school, high school students for that social distancing, and to allow us to more quickly screen our students that enter.
The next question is, are there any plans in place for COVID-19 testing for either students or staff? At this point, there are no plans to test students or staff, but we will be screening, obviously, our students daily and our staff daily. Students with a temperature check, and our staff will be filling out a questionnaire. There will be a random questionnaire periodically given out to students regarding symptoms, and we will give you more information on that as that comes along. If a student or staff member has symptoms, their medical practitioner will direct them to the proper appropriate treatment and testing if needed.
Our next question reads, what plans are in place for sterilizing classrooms and frequently touched surfaces? This plan is very complex. There are many working parts to it because we are going to be cleaning and sanitizing the building very frequently throughout the day, and then it will also be cleaned at night. Any high-touched area will be cleaned with regularity. Logs will be kept about when those surfaces are clean. At every level that will happen, specifically at the high school level, every single time a new student comes to a contact area or comes in contact with any surface, that surface or that piece will be cleaned, whether it's the materials in a science class, it is the desks in an English class. They will all be cleaned with regularity to ensure that no student is coming in contact with something that another student has touched. Same thing at the elementary level.
Our next question is about internet access. It says, what about students who don't have internet access at home? It doesn't affect us personally, but I would imagine it's a concern for some. It certainly is. In fact, it was one of our questions on the survey with purpose. We're collecting that information so that we know which families do not have internet access or they don't have reliable internet access. We are working with those families. We will be reaching out to help those families to obtain access as much as possible. We know that it's an issue here in Sandy Creek, but it is also an issue across the state.
The next question asks about movement breaks, specifically for our elementary kids. Yes, there will be many opportunities for movement breaks for our kids. As Mr. Filiacho explained, Monday through Thursday, our kids are also going to be in their specials as well, PE, art, music, for all K through 5. And our teachers will provide movement breaks throughout the day as well.
The next question is a question that probably many of you have thought. What if somebody refuses to wear a mask? If a student refuses to wear a mask here at school, it will simply not be allowed to come into the building, and they will have to engage in remote instruction unless they go through the proper channels and receive a 504 plan or an IEP. Those are the only scenarios. We do want to work with our students and our community members, and we would like to support all of them. And in order to do that, we do have to follow all of the guidelines and expectations, mandates that are sent down from the state, and wearing masks is one of them. So this is the route that we will have to take in order to support our community.
Our next question is about other services such as speech, OT, PT. How will these be worked into the schedule? How will they work, especially for those who will only be going twice a week? We are working with the providers, our OT, our PT, our speech, our special education department, who oversees those services. We are working to develop schedules to make sure that the students will receive those services. We may have to be, there may be some remote services in some cases, depending on what it's for. Our special education teachers are working to create, as you heard earlier, contingency plans to meet the needs of all of our students with IEPs, and within that plan, all the related services such as OT, PT, speech.
The next question is, what's going on with BOCES students? I think Mr. Seymour discussed that a little bit. We're still uncertain about what that schedule will look like. But once we do have that, we will be able to plug in all of our pieces and mesh our Sandy Creek schedule with our BOCES schedule.
We do know at the very least they will attend 1 day per week. Our next question has to do with sports. Are they going to happen? And if somebody is a remote learner, will they be able to participate? For right now, we know that tentatively sports are supposed to begin September 21st. That is the information that we are provided. They also have some other plans for sports to begin in January and to have shortened seasons. For right now, it's still very much up in the air, other than just the small piece that they say sports are going to start September 21st. Will students that are simply remote learners, 100%, will they be able to participate in sports? Yes, they will be able to participate in sports in the event that we have them.
Okay, our next question is, I'm wondering if there's going to be an opt-out option for this school year. In addition to that, it goes on to ask, could my child go through virtual learning if they go back to school due to having a chronic illness in the home? Yes, your student can choose to complete schooling 100% remotely, especially given if there is an illness concern or any medical concern in the home. You can choose the remote option, so your child can learn from home. Instruction and resources will come from us here at school, from the teacher, but attendance will still be required daily.
Our next question, again, asks about bow season. How will that look and how will it look for our students? Just because typically our students here at Sandy Creek, they do attend bow season in the morning. It works for us out for us in terms of transportation. So our students wouldn't be here in the morning, or if they do come in the morning, our bow season students, they're not going to have any scheduled classes. As a result, our BOCES students will not be expected to be in the building until 10:50. Much like a snow day, they wouldn't show up right when the other students attend. They could come in at a later time. However, we will accommodate those students that are unable to get here individually. They could still ride the bus, be in the building, complete whatever work they needed to. We would find an area for them to work each day that they're here, depending on what cohort they are in.
The next question asks about the exemption from wearing a mask due to medical conditions, and I know we've touched on this briefly. If there is a reason as to why your child cannot wear a mask due to a medical condition and or concern, that will need to go through the proper channels of the CSD chairperson, Kim Manfredi, to either develop a 504 plan for your child about the mask and or make an amendment to your child's IEP if he or she has one. However, please know that we have worked really hard to create socially distanced classrooms. In the guidelines as it states right now, if the classrooms are socially distanced and the kids are socially distanced, they will not have to wear their masks the entire day. As we said, if they do have to wear masks, we do have frequent breaks for our students to take them off.
Yeah, our next question is about, I'm concerned about virtual learning, and I'll refer to that as remote learning. Then the question is about whether or not there's a way that teachers can teach their normal lessons every day and the kids that are virtual log in for that day's lesson. Is there a way that every class can be a Google Meet? We are working diligently with our teachers in order to develop a plan for 100% remote instruction, the hybrid model, and also for our in-person model. Due to variations in teaching styles, course requirements, the individual lessons, instruction will look different depending on the teacher and the course. We're working on it to develop a schedule that allows time for consistent teacher-to-student engagement. But what is done with that time will be left to the teacher. We're developing instruction with the current idea that the students need to be prepped for a Regents at the high school level. The teacher's focus will be to provide appropriate instruction to prepare our students to be successful with the course standards.
Our next question is also a concern from about special ed, about a student who has an IEP with a parent concerned that he or she will not get their services provided, given that they will only be in school 2 days a week in person. And as I've said before, and I know Mr. Filiatro touched on it again just a couple questions ago, contingency plans are going to be created by each special ed teacher for each student on their caseload. And that teacher will be reaching out to the parent and student prior to the start of the school year to ensure that all of their accommodations and modifications are provided to the greatest extent possible, given the confines of the schedule and even being only in person 2 days a week. So we want to reassure our families and community members of students that have special needs that their accommodations and modifications will be provided to the greatest extent possible.
Our next question is something that we've already addressed, but we do want to answer all of the questions that have come in. It has to do with whether or not students, parents can switch their mode of instruction. We're asking you to pick a mode and stick with that mode of instruction, whether it be remote or the hybrid model or fully in person at the elementary level. We are asking that you stick with that, but again, we understand the situation is fluid and things must work. There is the ability to transition. However, we do ask that you stick with the mode of instruction unless it is a dire situation.
There was another piece to that question asking about PE class, and will PE be done in the classroom? We are still working on that. As referenced earlier, for PE, the distance changes to 12 feet. We do, with the smaller class sizes, have the room in the gym for students to spread out. We also are considering as many activities outdoors as possible, weather permitting. As we know, the weather in Sandy Creek is not always the best as we get towards the end of fall into winter. The next question, can the days in school be focused to accommodate my child's needs? Will the child be allowed to wear a mask at all times in school if they choose to? Is there going to be phys ed, and can we opt out of PE? Students with IEPs and 504 plans will be provided all accommodations, and that's been addressed. The teachers will be reaching out to make sure that they have the contingency plans, that things are all covered. Students can wear a mask all day if they choose to, but remember, we are trying to allow mask breaks, and when socially distanced, students can take them off if they choose to, but they could keep them on. Phys ed is still a New York State requirement. It is not optional. It is an expected course, and all students must participate.
The next question, it's worth mentioning again, yes, temperature checks will be taken at bus stops for all of our students.
Our next question, what is the protocol for positive cases on the bus, in a classroom, in a grade, a staff member, a school? If we have a positive case, how will we handle it? As we alluded to before, we are working with the Department of Health in order to create a plan for exactly what the timeline and what those pieces will look like. I can speak very briefly to the fact that we are going to have isolation rooms for those people that are potentially positive with it. If we determine that they show symptoms while they're here, there are isolation rooms that are being used, but we obviously won't know until the testing takes place, and they'll be outside of the building at that point.
The next question, what if there is a flare-up in the community? At what point will it affect the district? So fortunately for us, as we mentioned earlier, Mr. Faulkner does get notified from the Department of Health. He gets frequent updates. If there should be a rise in cases in the Sandy Creek community or this area, or even in the county, guidance will be given to us directly from the state and in conjunction with the Department of Health. They will be immediately involved with us and our school to make those decisions about what to do with whether school remains open, how long it may close, and so on.
This question asked about to help the process of choosing whether to keep children home at remote or to bring them into school. Wanted the breakdown of percentages of children who are choosing homeschool, virtual, hybrid, and they wanted us to break it down. We do not have all of the data at this point due to lack of surveys that have not been completed, but the information that we've had so far that we've already provided for you, our K through 5 class sizes are going to be 14 or less, 3 or 4 sections per grade depending on enrollment. Those classrooms will all be socially distant. In 6th grade, we have 13 per class with 5 sections. And in 7th and 12th grade, due to our hybrid model that we will have 12 students or less per class.
Right now, to help making a decision on the bus, what is the percentage on choosing busing or personally driving students? As of right now, we know that 60%, 62% of the students that have filled out the survey, or parents for students that filled out the survey, they plan on utilizing the buses, but it is important to mention that our high school students, 7 through 12, they will only be on the buses every other day, so you can cut that portion of the numbers in half.
Next question, will we be notified if there is a student in our child's class or on our child's bus that cannot wear a mask? Or will they be separated from the rest of the student body? That's a tough question, a difficult question, but due to confidentiality and HIPAA laws, we are strictly prohibited from sharing that personal information about the students and their health conditions with anyone. So one of the reasons why we're making you aware that there could be students that do not have a mask, but you need to understand that if they do not, it is due to medical conditions that have been approved, they've gone through the proper channels with a 504 IEP.
This was another concern, that going from basically being all pushed at home and to remote to not having a hybrid option for elementary was concerning. At this point, we do not have a hybrid model for K through 6. Our options for K through 6 are in person, Monday through Friday from 8 to 1:30, remote if that's the choosing, or you may homeschool your child. 7 through 12, because of the size of our student body, 7 through 12, we have decided to go with a hybrid model, which again is the 2 days in person and 2 days or 3 days remote learning. Options for 7 to 12 is also 5 days remote if they're choosing, and homeschool.
Our next question has to do with restrooms. How are they going to work? How will it work for K2? How will it work for other grades? We are going to work to have people around to support social distancing during those high frequency times, such as a lunchtime near the restrooms in order to ensure the social distancing. Also, we will only be allowing one student to leave a classroom at a time, and there will be constant communication between our administration and teachers to ensure that we don't allow congestion at the restrooms.
Additionally, in the elementary, as mentioned, K2 has a restroom in the classroom, so that certainly helps there, and teachers have talked about making sure that they, monitor that as best they can and that it gets cleaned whenever possible. At 3, 4, 5, we are talking right now about designating bathrooms for each grade level so that we can reduce the traffic that goes in and out of those shared bathrooms, and I think that we have a way that we can do that to help. The next question, with a longer time period in between classes to allow for cleaning, will the students just be in the halls grouped together? Students will be transitioning together. They will have to wear a mask as they switch classes and they travel in the hallways for the high school, middle school. But remember, since we are doing the hybrid model, we have limited class sizes, so there's half of the population that we normally would have in our hallways, which will allow for the students to be spread out more and eliminate congestion.
The next question addresses how will lockers work, since lockers are not 6 feet apart, and I think that goes back to when students are transitioning, which means they're going to be going to their lockers, they're going to have to wear a mask. Masks are always on when we can't socially distance, and lockers are going to be one of those times where they will have to wear their masks. However, there are many extra lockers in this building, and Mr. Seymour and I are working in collaboration with Mrs. Hemingway, our school secretary right now, to strategically place our students so that they can be the furthest apart, especially our 7th through 12th. So with our cohorts, we're going to be here one day and not the other. We're going to maximize that space in between those lockers so that we can have the biggest distance for our kids when we do have kids in the building.
The next question has to do with lunch and how students are going to get it and how it'll look in the cafeteria. As we talked about earlier, our elementary students, they will be having lunch in their classrooms. They will already be social distance. Our high school students, 6 through 12, they will be going to the cafeteria. The meals will already be prepped. They will be pre-ordered. So as the students walk into the cafeteria, they will be able to grab their meals immediately and go and sit in a socially distanced fashion. And at that point, they can take their masks off. We are going to be using both the elementary and the high school cafeteria for lunches for the high school level, again, to increase social distancing.
Next question, will the students who are remote learning still be included in the school concerts if they happen? And will they be able to have their school picture and class picture taken with their classmates? I'll answer the first one. So as we alluded to earlier with regards to sports and that question, remote learners will be allowed to, if we have sports, to participate. So to answer the concert question, if we have concerts, those students would be included. However, at this point, it's important to note that all concerts, as well as many other normal after-school activities, have been canceled or postponed at this point. To answer the question about school pictures, quite honestly, we do not have any answers for elementary class pictures, school pictures at this point. We will be talking about that. We will be having discussions about whether or not that can occur, and we will get information out to those families once we have more to offer.
The next question, as a single parent working full-time, one can't both be working and providing a student with the support they need for remote instruction. So what can the school do to help? What we are doing is we are going to be providing a schedule that you will have so you will know when that student is supposed to be completing the work. We will also be providing office hours so that the student can engage with the teacher to ask whatever questions need to be asked. Also, we are very flexible with this concept that we've talked about several times, which is attendance. So long as the student gets on at some point during the day, whether that's at 8 o'clock in the morning or it's at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they do and meet expectations, that will count as attendance. So those are pieces that we will have in place here. We will not have some other pieces in place where we can make home visits to provide instruction, none of those, but the other things we will be implementing.
The next question, what is the school's responsibility with children returning to school this fall and a child comes to school with a cough, a runny nose, or is sent to the nurse for not feeling well and is found to have a fever? As mentioned earlier, we are working very closely with the Department of Health. They are going to provide us with protocols, which we will follow. Our school nurses are going to be involved in that, in any of those events. As also mentioned, we have the isolation room. A student can be taken to the isolation room and monitored there. The nurse can check them. We do have our school-based health center, who we are also working with to ensure that they are involved in that process and following the protocols. The tough part, of course, as this question alludes, references, is the cough, runny nose. We all know allergy season can happen, and there will be symptoms sometimes that are not COVID, but students may present symptoms that are concerning, alarming. We will work with the nurses, we will work with the school-based health center, and do our best to make sure that we are checking those students. If there is a fever, then the parent will be notified and they will have to come pick up their child. It is important to note that we cannot transport a student home if they have a fever. A parent will have to come pick them up.
The next question asks, what is the protocol that will be followed, and will parents in that child's classroom be informed that there is a potentially sick child? Mr. Filiadro said the Department of Health is going to give us the direct guidance regarding that. Like he said, it could be allergies, it could be your regular common cold, it could be your flu. However, again, due to HIPAA laws, there's going to be definitely information that we cannot disseminate about specific students. But like I said, the Department of Health will have specific protocols here in place to ensure that we're following things that we should be following.
Our next question again follows this very similar question. What is going to be put in place to ensure the health of children coming to school for in-person learning? We are doing a number of things, sanitizing the building, cleaning. We are going to screen children daily, our staff as well, to ensure that students and staff aren't coming here sick. And with a fever, we will be addressing that as much as we can. We are going to follow guidance from CDC as well as the Department of Health.
The next question, are parents going to have to sign a waiver if they send their child to school and their child ends up ill with COVID, stating that the school will not be responsible? I know that there is a lot of that out there in the community, out in the media, floating around there. However, at this time, please be assured that there is no waiver to be signed, that is not part of a conversation here at Sandy Creek at this time.
The next question has to do with BOCES. Will they be attending? Yes, they will be going at least one day per week.
Next question asks about how bus students will enter the school, maintaining social distancing with regards to we have students being dropped off. As mentioned earlier, we have separate entrances. Students that come by bus will be dropped off in the bus loop, and they've already been screened, so they will enter the building at the designated areas. Students who are dropped off for the elementary will be screened in the parking lot at the elementary parking lot doors, and at the high school, middle school, they will be at the ramp area closest to the gym where they can be temperatures taken before they enter the building there.
The next question asks, students who ride the bus together, will they end up in a class together? Unfortunately, our students that ride the bus, they are all different ages from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. So we are not going to be able to put all of them in the same class. However, we will work to keep cohorts together once they are at school. We are going to work to keep similar cohorts together so that there is not the possibility of as much transition in the event that COVID ends up in Sandy Creek.
Next question, are teachers and staff going to be asked to quarantine themselves before going back to school? No. The school is not going to be requiring the staff to quarantine before coming back to school. However, if they were mandated by other state requirements, there are state mandated state protocols, health protocols that if they were exposed to someone with COVID and so on, there are protocols to follow. So they could be directed by a health professional, their doctor, to quarantine, and the Department of Health may contact them as individuals, but there is no requirement from Sandy Creek for all staff to do so.
The next question asks, will extracurriculars be held at school? Unfortunately, at this time, all activities, sports have been put on hold. As we get guidance and updates from the states, we will let you know if we are able to hold or host any of extracurricular activities for our students.
Our next question is, will kids be able to access remote learning from home when they are sick? We will work with the teachers to develop a plan that allows students, if they're just homesick, for one day to be able to access some sort of instruction. I'm sure that teachers will be able to work something out, but we will definitely allow them to make whatever work they miss during that sick day when they do return to school. We have a couple more questions that have come in. Our next question, I'm going to allow Mr. Filiatra to answer this. I may have missed it, but are kids still going to receive recess?
You didn't miss anything. We did not yet schedule any recess into the day. We wanted to make sure we were able to address the core subjects and to make sure we provided a special. However, student or teachers will, at their discretion, provide students with breaks. We are opening up our courtyards. We do have the outdoor area. We cannot use a playground at this time. That is something for down the road to, as we see how things develop, we may be able to open that up at some point, but for now, the playground is closed. There will be breaks. Teachers will do their best to give students movement breaks, but for actual scheduled recess at this time, it is not part of their day.
And our last question, will Sandy Creek have organized sports? We've already talked about it. The first potential day we could start September 21st, but we assume that there may be a change in that guidance as we get closer to this fall. But right now, our current understanding is that the start will be September 21st. And with that, that answers all of our questions. For those of you that are watching, we thank you for watching this evening and asking any questions. We are glad that we are able to ask them or answer them. If you guys have any further questions, that email will be open all summer long, and we'll continue to check it. We will also have a forum in the future where we will provide information again as we move closer to the opening of school. We thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.